She was 8 months pregnant. Wrapping Christmas gifts and dreaming of her baby's first holiday, until she vanished without a trace. It was Christmas Eve, 2002. The streets of Modesto, California, shimmered with golden lights. Children laughed in the distance, their voices carried by the cold winter wind. Inside the Peterson home, a quiet emptiness lingered. The scent of pine needles filled the air from the tree that stood half decorated in the corner. Laci Peterson, 8 months pregnant, had been preparing for the holidays. Wrapping gifts, planning dinner, smiling through the glow of expectation. But that morning something changed. The phone rang. No answer. Hours passed. Still, no sign of Laci. A neighbor saw her walking the family's golden retriever, Mackenzie, that morning. Later, the dog returned home. Leash dragging, alone. A strange silence fell over the neighborhood. The kind of silence that makes the air heavy, almost alive. Scott Peterson claimed he had gone fishing. Just a few hours away, he said. He smiled softly when the police came. His hands trembling only slightly. The officers looked around. The living room neat, the presents untouched, the nursery waiting. Soft baby, blue walls, a crib, and a single mobile spinning slowly above it. As days turned into weeks, hope turned into whispers. Whispers turned into suspicion. Scott's story began to change, just enough to chill the bones. Why would a man go fishing on Christmas Eve, leaving his pregnant wife behind? Detectives traced his movements. They watched his eyes. He spoke calmly, almost rehearsed, as if the tragedy belonged to someone else. But under that calmness was something hollow. Something that made people uneasy. Then came the discovery. By the San Francisco Bay, waves crashed against the cold steel of the shoreline. The scent of salt, decay, and something else. Something human. Drifted through the air, 2 bodies. One of a woman. One of an unborn child. The wind howled that day, sharp and merciless. And somewhere in Modesto, Christmas lights still flickered inside an empty house. A house that once held laughter, now heavy with the weight of unanswered questions. The world began to see Scott differently. Not as a grieving husband, but as a man with shadows in his eyes. A man whose lies rippled through every room he once shared with Laci. And when the truth began to surface, it was far darker than anyone could imagine. The news spread like wildfire. Reporters gathered outside the Peterson home, their cameras blinking like restless eyes. Neighbors spoke in hushed tones, replaying every moment they could remember. Every smile, every argument, every sound that might have meant something more. Inside the police station, the interrogation room buzzed with tension. Scott sat across from the detectives, his posture calm, too calm. He spoke about loss, about how much he missed her. But his words lacked warmth. They felt cold, mechanical, practiced. Detectives leaned closer. They asked about his fishing trip. The exact time. The place. The reason. Every answer tangled deeper into contradiction. He said he went to Berkeley Marina. He said he wanted peace of mind. But his peace had turned into evidence. Soon, they found the receipts. Boating equipment. Concrete anchors. Maps of the bay. And a quiet search history that whispered of things a husband should never need to know. The evidence began to build a story of its own. Of a story of betrayal, of secrets hidden behind a perfect smile. And then came the final twist. The affair. Amber Frey. Her voice trembled, as she spoke to the press, admitting she had no idea he was married. That he had told her his wife was gone before she truly was. The world froze. Every headline screamed betrayal. Every whisper turned into outrage. The image of the devoted husband shattered like glass. In the courtroom, the air was thick with grief and disbelief. Family members wept as photos of Laci filled the screen. Her glowing smile, her round belly, her gentle eyes. Scott sat motionless, expression unreadable. The jury watched him, searching for humanity, for remorse. But all they saw was distance. The verdict came like thunder. Guilty. The word echoed through the room, sharp and final. The faces of Laci's family broke into tears. Relief mixed with unbearable sorrow. Yet outside, the world still asked the same haunting question. What really happened that night? Was it rage? Was it planned? Or was it something even darker? The cold absence of love. The bay remains silent now. But when the wind shifts over the water, locals say it still carries her name. Laci. Whispered softly, as if the sea itself refuses to forget. Years passed, but the shadow of that name never faded. Laci. It echoed in documentaries, in courtrooms. In the hearts of those who once believed in perfect families. Scott sat behind bars. A face the world could no longer trust. He wrote letters, appealed verdicts, spoke of injustice. But no words could undo the image of that December morning. No plea could wash away the weight of 2 lives lost before they even began. The Peterson home was sold, its walls repainted, its garden regrown, but those who moved in said the nights felt heavy. That sometimes, when the wind blew across the porch, it carried the faintest scent of winter pine and sea salt. As if the house still remembered. Laci's family clung to memories. The warmth of her laughter, the sound of her voice calling from the kitchen. The way she spoke to her unborn child, as if he could already hear her. They built a memorial. The bay, where flowers still rest against the railings. A trembling in the ocean breeze. Every Christmas candles flicker there. Tiny flames defying the darkness that took her. People visit, standing in silence. Some pray. Some cry. Some just stare at the water, lost in thought. Because in that stillness, they feel something unspoken. Not fear. Not anger. Something colder. The reminder of how fragile love can be, when trust dies in its shadow. And as the waves rise and fall, as time moves forward, one truth remains. Laci's story is no longer just about a murder. It is about the facade of perfection, the mask people wear, and the monsters that sometimes hide behind gentle smiles. The world has changed since then. But the questions linger in the dark corners of every heart that heard her name. How could someone do this? How does love turn into silence? And why does evil so often wear the face of normality? Even now, when the night is quiet and the wind hums softly through Modesto, it feels as if her voice is still there. Not in words, but in the weight of everything left unsaid. Some say justice was served. Others whisper that it never truly can be. Because how do you measure the loss of the life that carried another within it? How do you balance the scales when innocence is buried beneath cold headlines and courtroom drama? Scott remains in his cell, years older, eyes dull from time and confinement. The walls around him do not speak, but the silence says enough. Every sound, a distant shout, the clang of metal, reminds him of the world he can no longer touch. The freedom he traded for lies. Outside, the story still breathes. A true crime enthusiasts dissect every word of his testimony. Podcasts revisit the evidence, debating motive, timeline, psychology. But behind all the theories lies a single, haunting image. Woman who believed she was loved, vanishing into the quiet of a December morning. The bay still holds its secrets. The same restless water that once reflected the glimmers beneath moonlight. Its waves move endlessly, as if trying to wash away what happened, yet always bringing it back. Every ripple, every soft crash against the shore, feels like a memory refusing to fade. Laci's family visits when the weather is calm. They speak to her softly, as though she is just beyond the tide, listening. They tell her about the world, about how her name has become a warning, a reminder to look closer, to trust carefully, to never ignore the silence between words. The case became more than a tragedy. It became a mirror, reflecting what people choose to see, and what they choose to believe. A picture, perfect life, a smiling couple, a baby on the way. And behind it all, a darkness no one wanted to notice until it was too late. Even now, when her story is told, people lean closer. They listen to the sound of footsteps in the narrative, to the moment where love turns cold. And deep down, they feel it. That unsettling truth, that evil does not always come from strangers. Sometimes, it comes from the person sleeping beside you. And that is what chills people the most. Not the brutality of the act itself, but the quiet, familiar face behind it. The realization that horror can live inside ordinary moments. Breakfast at the table. A soft kiss goodbye. A promise spoken with calm eyes. The Peterson case forced the world to look at what lies beneath the surface. The smiles that hide tension. The words that sound loving but echo hollow. It was not just the death of Laci Peterson. It was the death of comfort, of trust in what we think we know about others. Reporters moved on to new stories, new tragedies, new faces on missing posters. But Laci's story stayed. It lingers in the collective memory. The way the O.J. Simpson case did, the way every haunting mystery does, because it is not just about guilt or innocence. It is about betrayal so deep it shakes faith in human nature itself. In Modesto, the Peterson house still stands. Different owners now. Different laughter. Different life. But sometimes, at dusk, the street grows strangely quiet. The wind sweeps across the lawn, brushing against the faded path where she once walked her dog. And for a fleeting second, it feels as though time itself pauses, remembering. The bay remains the same too, its waves unbothered by memory, yet heavy with meaning. Those who visit say it feels colder there. Not just the air, but the presence. Like something unseen watches from beneath the water's surface. Fishermen still cast their lines from the same marina Scott once visited. Some refuse to speak of it. Others whisper about the weight of what happened. Not the evidence, but the emotion. The deep, unsettling stillness that hangs in the fog. Laci's name became more than a story. It became a symbol. For women whose trust was broken. For families who never found answers. For the truth that no matter how perfect a picture may seem, it can still hide the darkest shadows. And as the years pass, one image endures. A smiling woman beneath twinkling Christmas lights, her hands resting gently on her pregnant Ellie, unaware of what was to come. A single moment frozen in time. A moment that still whispers through history. Softly. Painfully. Eternally. Reminding the world that monsters do not always live in the dark. Sometimes, they live at home. Her story continues to echo through every heart that dares to remember. Because, Laci, a victim, she was a daughter, a sister, a friend, a soul, filled with light, caught unaware by the shadow that grew beside her. Each year, on the anniversary of her disappearance, people gather at the bay. They bring white roses. Candles flicker against the wind, trembling like fragile hope. Of waves fills the silence, steady, endless, and for a moment, it feels as if the world itself holds its breath. Her mother still speaks. Her name, with the same tenderness as before. Her father still avoids Christmas songs. Too many memories stitched between the melodies. They say grief changes shape over time, but never fades. It lingers quietly, waiting at the edge of every memory. Scott remains where he is. His name now bound to infamy. Some still believe his innocence. Some refuse to hear it. But the truth, whatever it fully was, drowned with that December tide. And no confession, no denial, can bring back what the sea once carried away. The media turned the tragedy into spectacle. Faces on television debating love, guilt, morality. But beneath the noise was a simpler, crueler truth. A woman believed she was safe, and she was not. Years later, documentaries replay the footage. Her smile, her home, her wedding. The moments before everything fell apart. Each frame becomes heavier with what the viewer already knows. That behind every beautiful scene was the ticking of an unseen clock, a counting down to silence. The bay glistens at night, its surface silver under the moon. Some say, if you listen closely, when the wind is calm, you can almost hear her name in the distance. Not crying, not calling, just lingering, like a breath between worlds. Because stories like Laci's never truly end. They live on, reshaped in every retelling. A quiet reminder of the fragility of love, of the danger of deception, and the haunting stillness of unanswered truth. And so the water keeps moving. The candles keep burning. And the name, Laci Peterson, drifts through time. A name the world will never let go. Even now, decades later. Her story breathes through the quiet corners of Modesto. Children who were not yet born when it happened know her name. Teachers mention it when speaking about trust, about danger, about how even the safest places can hold secrets. There is a mural near the park. Soft blues and golds, her face surrounded by roses and waves. People pass by and lower their voices, as if the painting itself can hear. It is not sorrow that fills the air there, but reverence. A collective understanding that innocence, once stolen, leaves behind something sacred. Journalists still write her name. In headlines, new documentaries surface. New voices retell the same tragedy with different words. Yet the feeling remains the same. Unease. Sadness. The quiet ache of, what if? What if she had stayed home that morning? What if someone had seen something, heard something, stopped something? What if love had been real? But the truth of Laci Peterson's story is not found in the what ifs. It is found in the fragility of life, the blindness of trust, and the way evil can disguise itself as care. Sometimes, when the wind moves through the trees outside her old house, the chimes on the porch begin to ring. The sound is soft, almost hesitant, As if something unseen still lingers there, watching, remembering, waiting for peace that never came. The bay, too, carries her memory. The same waves that once hid her story now whisper it back to anyone who listens. The water glows silver beneath the stars, and for a moment, it feels as if the sea itself grieves. People say time heals all wounds, but some wounds only learn to live quietly beneath the surface. The pain dulls. Yes. But the story remains. Sharp, unforgettable, and painfully human. Because Laci Peterson's name is not just carved into court records or crime documentaries. It is carved into the heart of a nation that watched, helpless, as love turned into a weapon. And long after her case fades from news cycles, long after her name becomes history, the lesson will remain. That evil often whispers softly. That danger sometimes smiles warmly. And that even the brightest souls can be taken by the ones they trust the most. And still, in quiet moments, the story feels unfinished. As if some part of her spirit lingers. Not in pain, but in purpose. A whisper against time. Asking the world not to forget. Her family learned to live in fragments. Moments of peace followed by sudden waves of memory. A familiar scent. A Christmas song, a passing shadow. Each one capable of breaking them open all over again. They speak her name at every gathering, never as a tragedy, but as light. They tell stories of her laughter, the way she always made others seen, the way she fiddled with warmth that never truly left. Every year, strangers send letters to her family. Some offer sympathy. Some share how her story changed their lives. And some simply write, I will never forget her. Those letters come from all over the world. A reminder that her life, though stolen, still touches hearts far beyond Modesto. In the prison where Scott sits, the seasons blur together. He stares through metal bars at the same sky she once looked upon. But while his world stands still, hers continues to move. Through voices that speak her truth, through stories that refuse to fade. There is something timeless about her silence. It does not scream. It does not demand. It simply exists. A quiet reflection of what was lost and what remains. The world that once obsessed over her case has changed. But whenever the topic of betrayal or disappearance arises, her name returns. One invited yet unforgettable. Because she became more than a headline. She became a warning. A reminder that beneath even the calmest surface, darkness can hide. The water by the bay glows softly at dusk. The sky turns shades of crimson and gold, colors that look almost like forgiveness. Visitors stand there sometimes, watching the horizon, feeling the same ache that began all those years ago. And, as the waves roll in and out, the air carries a single, lingering truth. That love, once broken by deceit, never truly heals. It echoes forever, like her name, whispered in the wind. A story that will never end because the world is not allowed to forget her. Laci Peterson. A name that lives. Where memory meets morning. Where silence tells the rest of the story, and where the sea keeps her secret, just beneath the waves. Years have passed. Yet her memory still moves gently through the world. Like a candle that refuses to go out. Laci Peterson is no longer just a case file, or a photograph frozen in time. She is a reminder of how fragile trust can be. And how precious love truly is. Her family found a quiet strength in her absence. They built foundations in her name, helped others who suffered the same unthinkable loss. Through them, her kindness lives on. Not as a story of pain, but as a legacy of resilience. The bay, where her story once ended, has become a place of peace. Each spring, white flowers drift on the surface of the water. They float softly, carried by the same waves that once held her secret. Now, instead of sorrow, there is stillness. Instead of fear, remembrance. Those who visit stand in silence, listening to the wind move across the shore. It feels calm now, almost forgiving. The sky stretches wide and open, the kind of sky she might have admired on a quiet evening, before the world knew her name. And in that moment, as the sun dips below the horizon, her story settles. Not in darkness, but in light. Because even though evil took her life, it could not take the love she left behind. Laci Peterson's name carries sorrow, but also grace. The grace of remembrance, the grace of truth, and the grace of a spirit that endures. And so, as the final waves touch the shore, and the night begins to rise, her story finds its rest. Not as a tragedy remembered, but as a voice that still whispers softly through time, reminding the world that love, once true, never truly dies.